this edition of Dr. Clark's One-on-One, The Living Classroom. And today we're going to talk politics 101 with my good friend and colleague, Professor George Amity. Professor George Amity is retired professor of political science at Southern University at New Orleans. And greetings and welcome, Dr. Amity. How you doing?
Greetings. Good to be here.
Yeah. Everything's been all right these days.
Oh, it's been great.
You know, these are some difficult times in America. I remember Martin Luther King used to say, we living through some difficult times, but guess what? These are some very difficult times. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. A lot's going on, and we have to be educated and alert about what's going on in this country.
I like what you say. We have to be educated, alert, truly understand, and that's a good position for all of us to know and recognize. Now, what I want to talk about is what we're going to talk about today are some of the issues of concern would be the government shutdown that's taking place right now, the generals and admirals meeting that took place this week, and the troops in Louisiana that perhaps will be coming this way, local elections, and perhaps some idea about what's happening with redistricting as well, and any other ideas and things which may pop up, which may indeed be kind of important to our listening audience. Now, in looking at the government shutdown, this is something which is not new to America, but everyone, our listeners understand the nature of government, and our listeners are pretty sophisticated. They understand the nature of party politics, executive politics, congressional politics, and I like for you to get your take on the Democratic Party and the Republican Party and the President of the United States with respect to this, in respect to trying to find a budget and the shutdown that's taking place right now. Yes, sir.
Well, as you indicated, this is not new territory, but to some extent, the mindset of the people involved are very different than the mindset in the past. The mindset in the past was one in which it was an attempt to develop a blame game prior to the elections for one party versus the other party. And most of the time in the past, and we've had a few shutdowns, but most of the time in the past, the idea was that we could develop a continuing resolution of things as is until the two sides could resolve this issue. That does not seem to be what's going on now. Now you have what it perceived to be to me, that you have people who believe that they're not saying it, but they favor a shutdown because of their politics and because of the fact that their posture is to really radically alter the existing political governmental system. So in that regard, the shutdown was inevitable. Now the question becomes whether or not the two sides are going to come to the table, and that will be a function of the public and how much the public cry from the public, who will feel the consequences of the governmental shutdown. But right now, it looks like the two sides are not coming together, and one side is just really kind of walked away from the table.
Well, it seems as though that this president has put something new on the table in terms of negotiating, and he's pretty hardcore and pretty ruthless in terms of what he's stating that this time that if there's a governmental shutdown and we have it right now, he may go beyond furloughs and say that what will have to take place is that he may very well use this as an opportunity to kill some jobs. And to exterminate some jobs, and whether he can do it legally or not is not the question. The fact that he says he is going to do this. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm not sure he can do that, but however, we know that this administration started out with the objective of radically reducing the number of civil service employees and at the federal level. In fact, challenged the civil service system in terms of the people in those positions, because the people in those civil service positions are neutral politically. Most of them are neutral. And so, and of course, this is a president who, if it were left up to him, everyone from the lowest to the highest governmental employee would be those who would take the oath to favor the president and not be put in their position based on professional competency that is used in the civil service realm. So clearly, taking the radical step of laying off people, not just laying them off, but reducing the budgets that have been congressionally approved by Congress, to me, it fits into this president's objective to transform the federal government, not only radically reduce the size, as we saw with Elon Musk with the chainsaw, but also to, if there is going to be a federal government, that the federal government are with people who no doubt will not question his authority and do exactly what he says.
Now, before we move to another issue, who is this? Is this winnable for the Democrats? And is this winnable for the Republicans, and president combined? So who will win?
Well, I think let's look at what happened last time.
Yes, talk to us. Yes, sir.
Because we had Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the House, the minority party, and Chuck Schumer, who did a compromise for the sake of keeping the government open, and the outcry by those within their party
from the left,
from the left, really chastised them. So, in other words, they've been put in a position of where they are now
because they compromised.
Because they compromised, and because they gave up so much in the process. So here they're saying we're willing to compromise, but we want to restore many of the programs that were a benefit to our constituents.
Oh, okay. And let's see, we have a call here on line one. Yes, sir. Carl.
How you doing? How you doing, Dr. Amedee?
How you doing,
Carl Gamma? How good?
Yeah, let me just say this. Dr. Amedee's daddy was the one who influenced me to get involved in civil rights.
Oh, yes.
And that's the old saying that says that the fruit never falls too far from the tree. His daddy was a pioneer in this city.
Yeah.
He didn't get the credit, but he was a pioneer. But I'm calling about affordable health care plan. That's one of the things that's going to impact Louisiana. Barack Obama got the Affordable Health Care Plan passed that provided health care in this state to about 400,000 African Americans. The Affordable Health Care Plan and expanded Medicaid. Okay? So also, too, that Affordable Health Care Plan got 37,000 people employed in this state. In Johnson's district, that takes up Shreveport, Louisiana, Caddo Parish. It takes up down around Vernon Parish. 40% of the people in his district benefited from the Affordable Health Care Plan and expanded Medicaid. So this will have a serious impact on Louisiana. What's so sad, I have not heard anything from our black elected officials. Now, another thing I want to talk about is infant mortality rate. When the Affordable Health Care Act passed, we had one of the highest infant mortality rates in the state for African Americans, which was 14%. For every 1,000 black babies born, 14% died because the mother could not get proper prenatal care. Under the Affordable Care Act and expanded Medicaid is down to 7% today. So, messing with that Affordable Health Care Act and fooling with Medicaid expansion is going to seriously hurt the people in Louisiana. I have not heard any talk about this from our elected officials, and they're running for mayor. A large number of people in New Orleans received the Affordable Health Care Act and Medicaid expansion. So I would like for Dr. Amedee to talk about that and how important it is In fact, he retired from Southern University at New Orleans. Many of the students who attend SUNO, they were able to get insurance for the first time. So it's very important that we think about our health and the amount of money that they want to cut from the Affordable Health Care Plan and Medicaid expansion. So I'm going to listen and while y'all comment about that. Thank you.
Well, absolutely. Great call. He's a good friend of the program. Our good friend, but he's absolutely correct because that's an issue. And Dr. Amity, you can respond to that. Then we respond to this.
And I'm going to respond to that. But your initial question will be who will win as a result of this shutdown. And I think at the end of the day, the Democrats are playing the right hand because I hear call. I know that we sometimes the elected officials attempt to play it safe and they're quiet on issues of that nature. But at the end of the day, it's the constituents and the people who have to put the pressure on the elected officials to do what, because they will be hurting. And this is not just in Louisiana, but nationwide, there are people who are hurting, especially many of the people who voted for President Trump. Latinos and others who voted for him, they will be hurting. And so they would have to do a reassessment of their vote. And I agree with you, the timing of this election locally, because it's not just about national politics, it's such that not only the elected officials need to be raising these questions, but the people themselves need to be raising these questions to the elected officials. Otherwise, we won't hear from them. And so when we have these forums, when we have these things on television, it's important for these issues to be raised.
And I concur with you as well. And what happens is that elected officials respond. They respond to their constituency. And it sadly is that what many individuals don't realize is that we have a high degree of poverty in the state of Louisiana. Not African American poverty, white poverty. And the elected officials who represent these white communities are absolutely letting their people down. And why they're letting their own people down? Because culturally they feel as though George Wallace said years ago, that hey, as long as they think they're living above people of color, they don't want to be in the same boat as a black person and poor whites. But the reality is, yes, indeed, that they suffer the same consequences. Now, I want to talk real quickly also about as time moves on, the troops should maybe coming to the state of Louisiana. The governor's requested troops to come from Louisiana. General Russell Honoré has responded who was one of our individuals who knows and understands the nature of the federal government and the National Guard. But your take on the National Guards coming into the state of Louisiana, not merely just in the city of New Orleans, but perhaps in other communities such as Freeport, Baton Rouge, and others. Yes.
Well, I look at what's happening from a constitutional perspective, because if you look at the U.S. Constitution, talks about the sharing of power between the federal or national government and the state government, and that there are powers that the national government has absolutely, and there are powers that the state government are reserved for the states. In this particular case, health, safety, and welfare and the police powers are state powers. And so one reason why we see D.C. as being a place where the Trump administration wanted to send troops was because D.C. is not a state. And then if you look at the others where he has gotten the consent of the governors to send troops, like our governor, then you see those are states that have Republican governors, whereas the ones that are in Illinois, now, as long as he's talking about immigration enforcement, then that's in the area of federal purview. But when you talking about fighting crime, the local police powers, those are state powers, and but still, these cities have. I would challenge it because they have home rule charters, and under home rule charters, the state is granted some autonomy, but at least some input into what goes on. So it's no question that local governments can benefit from additional resources, but that should be done through the local governments. It should be done. It shouldn't. The states shouldn't take the lead on that. The national government shouldn't take the lead because the national government clearly, it's not within their. It's not a reserve power. But even at the state level, when the local governments have been given home rule, then and of course we know that has happened in the past, even under Dutch Moriel with the metropolitan earning tax and all of that. The state comes in and usurps the authority of the local government. And that's where, once again, the candidates that are running for office, the state representatives, they have to be vocal. They're not vocal enough for me.
But what happens when a governor requests the troops to come into the state?
That's fine when they're requested, but
because in this case, the governor of Louisiana is requesting, and they are amplifying that. Yeah.
But they can, in my opinion, requesting troops to help, and there's some question of whether or not it's a real problem or not, because crime statistics have been on the decline, and I do think sometimes local governments might need some assistance, but defining the specifics of that assistance, the role of any help or resources that come to the local government has to be a major participant in that decision. You cannot have the governor trying to run a police department in a local government. So I'm just saying there has to be some meeting of the minds, whether or not the local government even believes they need additional troops, or whether or not the local government believe in what specific roles can those troops do to help in what's going on. But right now we have a dictatorial president and a dictatorial governor, and that to me is undemocratic.
Now, before we get into the state and locals, I want to get your analysis very quickly. When it comes to talk about when we look at the generals and admirals were called before the Secretary of quote unquote War, Secretary of Defense, and told they either have to get along, or leave, basically, and they were given a whole set of demands and orders of restructuring of the military when it comes to blacks in the military, whites in the military, when it comes to women serving in combat roles, and the ethos, even saying as much as say that when you complain that your complaints cannot be anonymous, even as much as saying that in this conflict that when you join the service, saying that you can even go back to striking soldiers at some point, the superior officer. I just want to get your response.
Well, let me just
because I already know, but I want our academic, we want our audience to recognize. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's look at it like this, because for the first move was the move to redefine the Department of Defense as the Department of War. Now, that to me sends a bad message, because in looking at international affairs, there's only two alternative approaches to international affairs. There's either war or negotiation and compromise. And the policy should always be that negotiation and compromise, if possible, is the best alternative over war.
Diplomacy.
Yeah, diplomacy, exactly. And so here, by renaming it Department of War, it sounds like someone is trying to operate the global scene with a machoism kind of perspective, the old U.S. superiority. Well, we've seen how that worked We saw how it worked in Korea. We saw how it worked in Vietnam. We saw how it worked in Iraq. We saw how it worked in Afghanistan. And they're going to get a whole bunch of people killed. The approach should be first diplomacy. With respect to the military and the treatment of people, this what Secretary Hestad had said to me is what's going on in this Trump administration. That is the way you look at policies, is to look at policies from the standpoint of eliminating actions in government that were implemented previously that actually was the intent was inclusiveness.
Yes.
And so now it's almost like what I say, the discrimination versus the reverse discrimination. You know, I mean, racial discrimination actually exists. But if you leave it up to this administration, it's only reverse discrimination, and everybody that benefited from type of affirmative action benefited only because they were less qualified. And so it's a way to define what's going on by saying that that women and others were in their roles and they did not get it by merit, and that it's part of eliminating DEI and that there was no justification for DEI. So what's happening in this environment is that those past discriminations are the likelihood of their returning is greater, and also the likelihood of excluding is returning. Now, look at the area of agriculture, where now there's no regard for marginalized, for beginning farmers, for veterans, or anyone black farmers, all of the others under that label. There's no regard for them because the policies that is to ignore those groups and to put more emphasis on big agribusiness. So in terms of this idea of treating people, with respect to women, women had to show that they were able to do the kinds of things that they're saying that was neglected. They would not be in a combat position, any of those positions, without first demonstrating their competence. So it's a straw man. It's a ghost. It's a way to implement what you really want, which is providing monies for people in Argentina, for bringing people from South Africa to replace. It's part of an extension of the so-called replacement theory, the paranoia, which I see it as Francis Cress Welby, the ISIS papers, a fear of people who are different in order to give advantage to those who are of white male in a nationalistic paradigm.
Well, we got a little bit longer than we should have. We only have 2 minutes left. But I wanted to talk about the races here, the state and local races, but in particular, looking now at what stands out in the local races that we have in the remaining 2 minutes that we do have. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, in the mayor's race, I've often said that it was going to be a runoff. And I'm going to still stick with that because of the percentage of African Americans and other progressive-minded people in the city. It was hard for me to believe, and of course, I've always been suspicious about the polls. It's hard for me to believe that one candidate is going to get 50%. Now, I will say this. A lot has changed. The ministers have gotten behind the lead, Helena Morena, the congressman, the DA, so the bandwagon. So that it's a possibility, but it still is. I don't believe that there's going to be a winner in the first in the primary. I still believe at the end of the day there's going to be a runoff.
But what district races stand out to you in terms that are key district races for all of us?
Well, of course, the ones that are, I think, we need to look at clearly District C. You have Freddie King, and you have some challenges, and the very profile of that district uh, is one in which you've always had both African Americans and non-African Americans representing that district. And of course, my district,
Historically.
District
Oh,
E,
yes, District E, yes.
District E,
The East.
you have Cindy Wynn, who's running as an incumbent, even though she's not an incumbent, but she's saying, reelect me. And that's true because she's been in that position before. And of course, we have Jason Hughes. At the forums that I've been to and attended, to me, he has been heads above everyone else.
Yeah, Jason Hughes has been outstanding. And I want to thank you for joining me. You're always excellent and very good. And you know, it's always great having you as a guest. And I want to thank my listening audience for tuning in. You can follow me on all platforms of social media. It's Dr. Clark's Living Classroom. And as always, it's been a pleasure.